let's look at a few more examples of arguments and breaking them out. So you should eat more vegetables. They contain low levels of cholesterol. They also contain low levels of sodium, fat, and trans fatty acids. High levels of those things are bad for your health. So here's an example of an argument that lacks indicators. There's no clear premise or conclusion indicators. So we would step back and think, what's the controversial claim that is being supported here? And there's really no evidence being provided that vegetables contain low levels of cholesterol. That's just a given. There's really no evidence supporting that the idea that they contain low levels of sodium, fat, or trans fatty acids. That's just a given. And there's really no evidence that these things in high levels are bad for your health. These are all just given. It's like they're expecting you to already be on board with these claims. And so the controversial claim that is being supported by them is the first one. You should eat more vegetables. And this is a good example of how you can't just trust that a conclusion will always be at the end of a passage. So if I were to break this up, I would say that vegetables contain low levels of cholesterol, that vegetables contain low levels of sodium, fat, and trans fatty acids, that high levels of those things are bad for your health, and the conclusion is really the appeal to you, the claim that you should eat more vegetables for these three important reasons. All right. So if I wasn't sure if that conclusion was true, it must be because I have doubts about one or more of these premises, and I would want to hear the defense for them. I would want to make them part of an argument where they're defended and show me the evidence. But here they're just given, so they would constitute the premises. But the controversial claim is that you should eat more vegetables. In this next example, we are going to have a recession. For 100 years, anytime the stock market has lost at least 20% of its value from its highest point in any fiscal year, there has been a recession. The current stock market has lost 22% of its value during the last fiscal year. So this is a prediction. A prediction is a kind of probabilistic inductive argument, but we base our ideas about what the future will hold on past events, and that's exactly what's going on here. So what is just given, what is not being defended, is this idea that for 100 years we've seen this phenomenon where if a stock market loses 20% of its value from its highest point within a fiscal year, there's a recession. And there's no evidence provided that this is the current state of the stock market, but these two claims act as evidence for the ultimate prediction that is the controversial claim that the arguer is trying to prove, that a recession is coming. So I would mark this phenomenon that has been, occurred historically as a reason. I would comment on the current state of the stock market as a second reason, and my conclusion is that a recession is coming. Okay, this if these premises are true, the argument seems to be very strong, but I would acknowledge that predictions are probabilistic, because sometimes long ingrained trends don't replicate themselves. There could be what philosophers call a black swan event, which is essentially that a long-standing pattern that gives us an expected result ends up surprising us, and it doesn't give us the result that we expect. But it still seems like a pretty decent prediction. It's more likely that historical trends will replicate themselves than that there will be this rare black swan event. Okay. And then the last one, the vast majority of all university students expect to make more money in their lives than their parents, because in a survey of 1,000 university students in the US, 80% said that they expect to make more money in their lives than their parents. In this case, we do have an indicator word that should pop out at you, the word because. And that is a premise indicator. So when what follows the word because is typically a premise. And indeed, this survey, which was conducted with 1,000 students, is being used as the evidence to support a larger generalization, a claim about all university students. So the survey is going to be the reason or the premise, and the conclusion is the generalization that takes that survey of a limited group of people and then infers that that's likely the sentiment of all university students. This is another example of an probabilistic argument because all the survey really tells us about are those 1,000 people who were surveyed. So the conclusion goes beyond that to say something about all university students, but we can't be 100% sure that this select group of students is reflective of popular opinion.